Hello, in this video I'm going to be replacing the front brake shoes on my 1969 Honda CL450. So I already started on this assembly and I just had to contact the manual because I wasn't sure exactly where to go once I got these levers off. So what you do here is this whole sleeve here is a nut that fastens onto the axle. Alright, so I let that oil sit for a while, and I was just off camera able to break this loose by sort of standing on top of it like this with my big adjustable wrench and a long screwdriver. I was able to break that loose. Let's get it back up on the bench. Okay, I'm taking this axle nut off. I can push the axle out. There's the axle. Now this should just pop right off here. There you go. Now, just as I've done that, I've remembered all this dust in here is carcinogenic, so I'm going to throw on a mask real quick. Alright, once I put on this mask, you won't be able to hear me very well, so basically, I'm just going to take out the pivot points and then try to take the brake shoes off. Oh, looks like the camera shifted and I didn't get much of that on film. Basically, I just took the springs off with these red pliers, and then these actually just sort of wiggled off once the springs were gone. So now I'm gonna take out these pivot points as well and clean everything up with brake cleaner and re-grease everything that needs to be re-greased. Alright, so you just saw me put the brakes back together and grease all the joints and then wipe out all the excess grease. And now I just put in those 2 felt washers that I took out earlier. And now I'm going to put back on the brake arm, or I'm not sure what this is called, the brake lever maybe, with the spring that holds it back, so it springs back. So spring obviously first goes down here, and then I'm going to use some anti-seize on here on the little teeth. This is just so if I ever have to take this apart again, the lever will come off easily, because there's a lot of teeth there and you don't want to really like damage the teeth, obviously. So now I just looked back at my footage and I know the brake goes like this, and there are, on both of these, there's a punch mark there, a punch mark there, and there's a little punch mark on either of these pivot points as well. And so you want to line up those punch marks when you put these teeth back on. So I believe that is right. And then that should drop in where it should as well. All right, and then this spring pretty easily just fits back on there. And now you can see when I pull that lever, the brakes, now you can see that when I pull the lever down, the brakes press out. The one thing is I did get a little bit of grease here on the actual brake pad, and that's no good, so I'm going to clean that off with some more brake cleaner. But then, once I do that, this whole thing, I think, can get put back into the wheel. Alright, so before I put the brake back in there, I heard it's a good idea to sand this inside drum surface, because it gets kind of glossy and you want more friction, obviously, for more braking. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is 120 grit. Alright, I'm going to bring this on the ground now and tighten it the same way I loosened it, sort of leaning over it. Alright, so I'm back at the bike, and I'm going to put my front fender and front wheel back on. This bracket here goes from this point in the wheel up into the fender. It goes on the fork side of the fender, and it makes it so that you're lined up here with where the free spinning part, which is this inner part of the hub, make sure that part is lined up. Alright, So I was having some trouble with these front axle holder nuts, and actually the bolts or the threaded pieces on the lower fork tubes. Basically they were stripping. As it turns out, one of the 4 bolts was 13 millimeters, the other 3 were 12s. I didn't realize that for a while. Anyway, I got new nuts for all 4 at the hardware store. These are now all 13 millimeter. The threads now on this side are kind of damaged, on that side they're good. So I'm just going to go ahead, I set my torque wrench to 21 foot-pounds, and I'm just going to tighten them as best I can. There you go. That's one side. That's the other side. So it does leave kind of a gap there. I think what I'll do is I'll just keep an eye on that after the first couple rides. And if it's going to be an issue, then I can take it apart and try to fix it up. But it doesn't seem like there's much. It doesn't seem like there's really a way of avoiding there being a small gap. So I got everything torqued, and I feel like that should be adequate. Alright, so those are all torqued to 21 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to reinstall my brake cable. I never took it out of the front brake lever, so I just have to reinstall the lower part. The way I'm going to do that is there you are. Now this Alright, so I got the front brake cable back installed. I think there might be a little less free play than spec. I don't know, it goes... There's that. Anyway, that's pretty easy to adjust if I feel like that feels weird. You just tighten or loosen these nuts and then lock them around this. But anyway, the brake, it does obviously work. So it'll just be something I have to get a feel for, if it's too much free play or not enough. Alright, and with that, I've got my whole front end reassembled. I have a new steering stem bearing, cleaned and resealed forks, and new brake pads on the front wheel. So in the next video, I'm going to take a look at the rear brake pads, and then I may go through the carburetors on the bike depending on how they look. Thanks for watching.